Think about this. Every single night, you probably spend, around 2 hours completely lost in dreams.
Yeah, it's a huge amount of time when you add it up.
Right. All that time in this nightly mental show, and yet it's still one of the biggest mysteries of being human.
It really is remarkable. I mean, it's this universal experience. Everyone does it all through history, but we're still figuring it out. From ancient thinkers to, modern scientists, everyone's wondered about dreams.
Okay, let's dive right in then. For this deep dive, we're looking at a source called an AI exploration of dreaming. And this isn't just some, dry research paper.
No, not at all. It's actually really comprehensive. It looks at dreaming from all sorts of angles.
Yeah, like the neuroscience, what's actually happening in the brain, the psychology, why we might be doing it, how people viewed dreams way back when.
And even how AI, artificial intelligence, might help us crack this whole nocturnal puzzle.
Exactly. What's great about this report is it doesn't just treat dreaming like some random biological thing.
Right. It really puts it in context. It connects it to how we think, our emotions, even the societies we live in. It pushes us to look beyond just, simple answers.
So our goal here is to pull out the most interesting bits, the key takeaways about dreaming. We want to get a clearer idea of what's going on when we're asleep, why we have these often really weird experiences.
And what those experiences might tell us about our waking lives. Plus, where dream research might be heading, especially with AI getting involved.
And we'll try to keep it accessible, avoid getting totally bogged down in super technical sleep science jargon.
So where do you even start with something this complex? The source material really stresses looking at it from lots of different angles.
Right. So we'll touch on the sleeping brain itself, those classic psychological ideas from people like Freud and Jung.
And the more current scientific views, too. Plus, how dreams affect our well-being, our relationships.
How different cultures see dreams, and, that potential role for AI in shedding new light on it all.
It's a lot to cover.
Okay, let's start with the basics. The brain. What's actually going on up there when we fall asleep? The report mentions we cycle through different sleep stages.
That's right. There's non-rapid eye movement sleep, NREM, which has a few stages itself, and then REM sleep, rapid eye movement.
And a full cycle takes about, 90 to 120 minutes. And we go through a few of these each night.
Yeah, usually about 4 or 5 cycles for most adults. And these stages are really quite distinct. Different brain waves, different things happening physiologically.
NREM goes from that light drifting off feeling.
Right. Stage 1 down to stage 3, which is that really deep, slow wave sleep. Super important for, physical recovery.
But REM sleep, that's the one everyone thinks of when they think dreams, isn't it?
Generally, yes. The report notes that during REM, brain activity actually looks surprisingly similar to when we're awake.
And that's when you get the rapid eye movements, obviously, and our muscles go temporarily limp, muscle atonia, is that right?
Exactly, muscle atonia. And other things like breathing and heart rate can get a bit irregular, too.
And it's a decent chunk of our sleep, 20–25% for adults, and it gets longer later in the night.
That's it. Those REM periods tend to stretch out as the night progresses.
So, drilling down a bit, what parts of the brain are driving this REM state?
Well, a key player is a part of the brainstem called the pons. It seems to trigger REM by releasing acetylcholine.
Acetylcholine, okay. And that chemical then activates other parts of the forebrain.
Right, and that activation is thought to be really important for creating those vivid, almost cinematic dream images we experience.
Interesting. And then other chemicals come in when REM ends. Noradrenaline and serotonin.
Yeah, exactly. Their release helps transition out of the REM state.
Okay, here's where it gets really fascinating for me. During REM, the emotional centers of the brain, like the amygdala,
And the hippocampus, which is key for memory.
they go into overdrive, sometimes even more active than when we're awake.
That's what the research suggests. But, and this is crucial, the part responsible for, let's say, executive functions, logic, self-awareness.
The dorsolateral prefrontal cortex.
That one. It shows relatively lower activity during REM.
Ah, okay. So that difference might explain a lot about how REM dreams feel, right?
Precisely. That ramped-up emotional processing fits perfectly with the intense feelings we often have in dreams.
And the less active prefrontal cortex.
Yeah.
That could be why we just accept bizarre stuff without question, like our internal logic checker is offline.
Kind of like the brain's editor takes a break, yeah. Self-reflection and critical thinking definitely take a backseat.
But the report also says dreaming isn't only in REM, right? We dream in NREM too.
Absolutely. It's not exclusive to REM. Mental activity, including dreamlike experiences, can happen in NREM stages, especially the lighter ones, stage 1 and 2.
But those in-REM dreams are usually a bit different. Maybe shorter, less vivid, less emotional.
Yeah, often more thought-like, less like a full-blown movie. And in that really deep stage 3 NREM sleep, the slow-wave activity might actually interfere with forming complex narratives. The brain's just in a different mode then.
So it's not just the pons and forebrain. Other systems are involved too. Dopamine pathways.
Related to motivation and reward. Damage there can apparently stop dreaming, even if REM sleep itself is intact.
Wow. And there's another area mentioned, the parieto-cabuto-temporal junction, involved in perception and imagery.
Right. Damage there can also lead to a loss of dreaming, so it really seems like a distributed network is required for the full experience.
And then neurochemistry, high acetylcholine, low serotonin, and norepinephrine in REM, plus dopamine playing a role.
Yeah, that chemical cocktail is really specific to REM and helps shape the experience. Think of acetylcholine as maybe turning up the sensory vividness.
Okay, so putting it all together, the brain is super active during sleep, but in different ways depending on the stage. And we've moved past thinking dreams REM.
Definitely. NREM dreaming is recognized now, suggesting our forebrain just has this basic ability to generate subjective experiences from whatever state it's in.
It's like the brain is always trying to synthesize, to make sense of its own internal signals, whether it's the high-frequency buzz of REM or the slower rhythms of NREM.
That's a great way to put it. The flexibility of the sense-making process across different brain states is really quite remarkable.
Okay, so what are these experiences actually like? The report uses the term pseudo-perceptions.
Yeah, meaning we experience sensations in the dream as if they're totally real, mostly visual, very vivid seeing.
And motoric too, right? Feeling like we're moving, walking, flying even.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But other senses can be involved too. Touch, smell, sound. And the imagery itself can be this weird mix of the totally bizarre and the completely mundane.
And the emotions are cranked up, especially in REM. Makes sense of the amygdala activity we talked about.
Definitely. Dreams can be intensely emotional, joy, fear, anger, sadness, the whole spectrum.
And what about memory? How does that fit in? Dreams seem to pull from our waking lives.
They do. Recent events, old memories, worries, hopes, they all get woven in, but often in fragmented or transformed ways.
The report links REM sleep specifically to consolidating procedural memory like skills, how to do things, and emotional memory.
Right. And deep NREM sleep seems more involved with declarative memory facts. Events.
So one idea is that dreaming itself might be part of that memory consolidation process, like the brain is sorting and filing while we sleep.
That's a major theory, yes. That dreaming plays an active role in processing and storing memories, maybe strengthening important ones, integrating new experiences.
But cognitively, things are different. Less self-reflection, less critical thinking. We just accept the weird stuff.
Generally, yes. That's why dream narratives can seem so illogical or jump around without us noticing at the time.
Unless you have a lucid dream, of course. That's the exception where you realize you're dreaming.
Exactly. Lucid dreaming brings back some of that self-awareness and critical capacity, which is fascinating in itself.
So it's like this trade-off in REM sleep. I dial up the emotion and memory processing.
And dial down the executive functions, the logic circuits. It suggests the brain prioritizes this offline processing of emotional and memory-related material.
Okay, that gives us a good picture of the what's. Now let's get into the why. What are the big neurobiological theories trying to explain dreaming? First up, activation synthesis.
Right, Hobson and McCarley's theory from the 70s. The basic idea was that dreams are just the forebrain trying to interpret random signals firing up from the brainstem during REM.
So initially, they thought dreams were basically meaningless, just the brain making stories out of noise.
That was the initial thrust, yeah, like the cortex trying to make sense of static. But the theory has evolved.
How so?
Well, later revisions acknowledged that dreams aren't always totally random or nonsensical, and they incorporated NREM dreaming too. Hobson also developed the AIM model later on, which is a more nuanced view looking at activation, input-output gating, and chemical modulation.
Okay, then there's the continual activation theory. How's that different?
It agrees that dreaming involves ongoing brain activation and synthesis, but it suggests REM sleep and the experience of dreaming might be controlled by related but separate mechanisms.
And it emphasizes memory consolidation too.
Yes, particularly REM's role in procedural memory. The idea here is that the dream experience arises when these memory streams become accessible to consciousness during sleep, when external sensory input is low.
Interesting. What about the neurocognitive theory, Domhoff's work?
This one views dreaming less as a byproduct and more as a cognitive achievement that develops over time. It's linked to the maturation of certain brain networks, like the default mode network.
And our general cognitive skills, like simulating scenarios in our minds.
Exactly. It emphasizes the continuity between waking thought and dreaming. What we dream about reflects our waking concerns, our schemas, our emotional preoccupations. It's like our mind continues to process our world, just in a different state.
And finally, theories focusing on dopamine and the reward system.
Right. The idea here is that the activation of these reward pathways during dreaming suggests dreams might be linked to our motivations, our desires, maybe even exploring future goals or wishes.
So not just processing the past, but maybe simulating or striving for the future too.
Potentially, yes. It adds another layer, suggesting dreams could have this forward-looking motivational aspect as well.
Okay, shifting gears a bit. Let's talk about dreaming across humanity. Is it the same for everyone?
Well, yes and no. The report confirms dreaming is universal. Pretty much everyone does it, that 2 hours a night figure again.
But the content and meaning vary hugely, right? Depending on the person, their culture.
Absolutely. Huge diversity in what people dream about, how often they remember them, how important they think dreams are. Individual factors and cultural context play massive roles.
What about gender? Are there differences?
The research seems pretty mixed, honestly. Some studies suggest subtle thematic differences, but it might be more about societal roles and experiences shaping content rather than strict biology.
Age seems clear, though. Kids' dreams are different.
Definitely. Very young children often report simpler, more static dream images, lacking complex narratives. As their brains and cognitive skills develop, the dreams get more complex, more story-like, and recall improves.
And their dream content often reflects immediate stuff.
Yeah.
Fears, daily life.
Yeah, very much tied to their immediate world. Then, as adults, dreams often mirror ongoing concerns, relationships, work, life stresses.
And older adults.
They might report more dreams about people who've passed away or revisiting childhood scenes. There might also be some decline in dream recall for some.
And culture is a massive influence, you said.
Oh, profoundly. Cultural beliefs really shape not just interpretation, but the actual content and symbolism within dreams. The report contrasts forager societies where dreams might focus on social connection and support.
With maybe Western societies where dreams can sometimes be more individualistic or even negative.
That's one comparison made, yeah. It highlights how culture frames the whole experience.
And there's just individual variation on top of all that.
Yeah.
Personality, recent events, mood.
Exactly. Your unique life experiences, your emotional state right now, it all feeds into your personal dreamscape. It underscores that while the capacity to dream is universal, the experience is deeply personal and contextual.
Okay, let's dig into how dreams connect with our inner world, insecurities, relationships. Seems like they can actually affect our waking interactions.
They definitely can. Research suggests just sharing dreams can increase intimacy and empathy. It's like opening a window into your inner world.
That makes sense. What about that lucid dreaming communication idea?
It's still very early research, but the possibility of interacting within a lucid dream, maybe for therapeutic purposes or enhancing relationships, it's pretty fascinating to think about.
But dreams we don't share can have effects too. Like dreaming of conflict, making you irritable.
Yeah, there's evidence for that kind of priming effect. The emotions or scenarios played out in the dream can sort of bleed over into your waking mood and interactions, sometimes subtly reinforcing existing relationship patterns.
And insecurities often show up.
Very much so. People with, say, insecure attachment styles might report more frequent or intense emotional dreams. Dreams can be a space to process these feelings.
But bad dreams could make them worse.
Potentially, yes. Though sharing those vulnerable dreams with someone supportive can actually help mitigate the insecurity.
What about the broader impact on mental and physical health?
Well, positive dreams can definitely boost mood. And dreaming itself is thought to aid emotional regulation generally. But when dreaming gets disrupted, especially with frequent nightmares, it can cause real problems.
Yeah, the report mentions a nightmare disorder. That's more than just an occasional bad dream.
Right. It's defined by repeated, highly distressing nightmares that cause significant impairment in daily life. Affects maybe 2 to 5% of adults.
And the impact can be serious. Sleep problems, emotional issues, anxiety.
Yes, poor sleep quality. difficulty regulating emotions, heightened anxiety, daytime fatigue, and in severe cases, it's even linked to increased suicide risk.
And there's a strong link with PTSD.
Very strong. Up to 70–80% of people with PTSD have frequent, often replicative nightmares replaying the trauma. Interestingly, these can happen outside of REM sleep, too, unlike typical nightmares. It seems to be a bidirectional relationship. Nightmares worsen PTSD. PTSD triggers nightmares.
And connections to depression and anxiety, too.
Definitely. Strong associations. Dreams and depression might be more sad or hopeless. Anxiety dreams often feature themes like being chased or losing control. How someone reacts to their nightmare seems linked to the severity of the underlying condition.
And even links to psychosis.
Yeah, increased prevalence of bad dreams and nightmares is noted there, too. It's led some researchers to think of disturbed dreaming as maybe a transdiagnostic marker.
Meaning it signals broader issues with emotional regulation.
Exactly. Problems processing distress that might cut across different diagnoses. This suggests therapies targeting nightmares, like IRT, might actually have wider mental health benefits.
And you mentioned genetics earlier. Preliminary links to nightmare frequency.
Yeah, some gene variants identified as potentially more common in frequent nightmare reporters, but the causal link isn't clear yet. Lots more research needed there.
So our dream life is really tied into our overall health. Disturbances are worth paying attention to.
Absolutely. It's an important window into our psychological state.
Let's look at development again. How does dreaming change as kids grow, and how does it relate to learning? It's not fully formed at birth.
No, complex narrative dreaming seems to be a gradual cognitive achievement. It's tied to the brain maturing those visuospatial networks, the default mode network, and also developing cognitive skills like executive function, using symbols, building narratives.
Folks' research showed very young kids have simpler, more static reports.
That's right. And it's fascinating, dream recall in kids aged 5–15 correlates with visuospatial skills, like the block design test on intelligence scales.
Wow. And dream bizarreness is linked to other skills, language, memory, attention.
Yeah, suggesting it reflects developing cognitive complexity. As kids get older, their dream content becomes more complex, emotional, interactive. Recurrent dreams are also common in childhood.
And what about learning? REM sleep is important for memory consolidation.
Crucial, especially for certain types.
Yeah.
Getting enough REM after learning helps with recall. And dreams themselves might help by fostering novel connections between ideas, simulating scenarios.
Which could potentially boost problem solving and creativity, helpful for education.
That's the idea. This developmental view really supports dreaming as a sophisticated mental simulation, not just random noise. It suggests it plays an active role in cognitive growth.
Okay, let's zoom out again to the cultural and historical side. How have people viewed dreams over time? It wasn't always just brain static.
Not at all. Ancient civilizations, Mesopotamia, Egypt, Greece, often saw dreams as supernatural messages, divine communication. Dream interpreters were important figures influencing rulers. Think Joseph and Pharaoh.
And religions worldwide have incorporated dreams.
Widely. Hinduism, Jainism, Christianity, Islam, Buddhism. Many traditions see dreams as connections to deeper realities, sources of guidance, or tools for introspection.
Then the Victorian era had this tension, science versus popular beliefs.
Yeah, emerging scientific explanations focusing on physiology clashed with widespread belief in dream books, omens, spiritual interpretations.
Until Freud and Jung came along in the 20th century.
Right, they revolutionized things by framing dreams psychologically reflections of the personal unconscious, repressed desires for Freud, or the collective unconscious, archetypes, and personal growth for Jung. The focus shifted inward.
And even today, some cultures integrate dreams very differently, like those forager societies.
Exactly. For some indigenous groups, dreams are vital for social and emotional life, reinforcing community bonds, aiding group problem solving.
So how we see dreams really depends on our whole worldview, our culture's ideas about reality and self.
Completely. What dreams are is shaped by time and place. It's a cultural and historical construct in many ways.
And dreams haven't just been interpreted, they've inspired creativity too, right? Art, literature.
Hugely. Think Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream, fairy tales, the surrealism of Dali, all tapping into dream logic and imagery.
And modern films explore dream themes too. Shared dreaming, manipulation.
Yeah. Inception, dream scenario filmmakers love playing with the nature of dream reality. Even comedy uses the absurdity of dreams for humor.
That connection between absurdist comedy and dreams is interesting. Both bypass logic.
Kind of, yeah. The report suggests both can tap into emotions more directly by sidestepping our rational defenses.
Let's talk about dreams in society. It's not just individual psychology.
No, sociological perspectives, like Lahir's work mentioned in the source, see dreams as reflecting our social world, our ingrained habits shaped by society, our waking life problems. The idea is the unconscious itself is socially structured.
Meaning social hierarchies, cultural norms can show up symbolically in dreams.
That's the argument. And dreams of the deceased are a powerful example, very common, culturally significant, reflecting beliefs about afterlife, grief, continuing bonds.
And those forager societies, again, sharing dreams, reinforces community values.
Right. The content often relates to communal challenges, and the way dreams are shared and discussed emphasizes social support and collective identity.
What about major events? War, trauma. How do they impact dreams on a larger scale?
Profoundly. Historical accounts show how anxieties and horrors of war permeate dreams. And that book, The Third Reich of Dreams,
Charlotte Perrault's work. About Germans dreaming under Nazi rule.
Yes, it's a chilling example of how a totalitarian regime's symbols, fear, and surveillance seeped into people's unconscious, showing up in their dreams even before the worst horrors unfolded. It really shows how societal forces shape our inner lives.
It's a sobering thought. Even our private dream world isn't immune, and sharing those dreams can be a form of testimony.
Absolutely. These night diaries can reveal hidden psychological impacts of conflict and oppression, offering unique historical insights.
This leads us nicely into the philosophy and ethics of it all. Dreams raise some big questions.
Huge questions, like Descartes' classic dream argument. How do we know we're not dreaming right now? It challenges our reliance on sensory experience.
And are dreams actually conscious experiences? Most people assume yes.
That's the received view, but philosophers have debated it. Lucid dreaming, though, where you know you're dreaming, seems like strong evidence for consciousness during dreams.
Dreams really blur the lines between illusion and reality, don't they? Since the brain constructs both.
Exactly. Similar brain areas are active when we perceive, imagine, or dream. And the experience of a dream self, who is that? How does it relate to our physical body? Lots of intriguing questions there.
What about the sense of dreams? Morality, for instance. Can we be bad in a dream? Especially a lucid one.
It's an interesting ethical puzzle, parallels to virtual reality ethics. Are we responsible for actions in a consciously controlled dream? Do dreams reveal our underlying moral character?
And dreams as fantasy, wish fulfillment, but also linked to deep beliefs.
Right. They can be pure imagination, but also tied into spiritual or religious beliefs about divine messages or journeys. Nietzsche even thought dreams were the origin of metaphysics. It's that tension between seeking meaning and empirical science again.
Which brings us to the ethics of interpreting and sharing dreams. This feels really important.
Crucial. Because dreams are so personal and potentially revealing, the #1 principle has to be the dreamer's autonomy.
They are the expert on their own dream.
Ultimately, yes. Interpretations from others should be suggestions, possibilities, not dictates. And the do no harm principle is paramount.
Privacy and confidentiality too, obviously.
Absolutely. And a really important point raised is the risk of misinformation or even creating false memories through suggestive interpretation, especially in therapy.
So defining what's okay and not okay when talking about dreams is key. Like interpreting an aggressive dream literally as instructions.
Clearly unethical and dangerous. A Jungian might see it as needing to integrate a shadow aspect, but literal interpretation leading to harm is out. Using dream content for gossip is also a major breach of privacy.
And presenting interpretations as solid predictions.
Irresponsible, it can cause huge distress. Basically, interpretation goes too far when it overrides the dreamer's autonomy, causes harm, justifies bad actions, violates privacy, makes wild claims, or creates false beliefs.
The International Association for the Study of Dreams has guidelines.
Yes. Emphasizing honesty, accuracy, respect for the dreamer, cultural sensitivity, and social responsibility. These are becoming even more vital with new dream technologies emerging.
Okay, last bit on connections. The report mentions speculative links to genetics, biology, even physics, and math.
Yeah, the genetics of nightmares is an emerging area, finding potential gene associations, but mechanisms are unclear. Biologically, beyond the brain, you have evolutionary theories, ideas about brain plasticity, even preventing neuron death.
But physics, math, logic, Those links are more metaphorical.
Largely, yes. Math is used to model brain activity, but dreams aren't inherently mathematical. Dream logic usually breaks formal logic rules. It's vital to distinguish solid science from plausible hypotheses and purely analogical thinking.
Stimulating ideas, but not concrete explanations yet.
Exactly. Value and sparking thought, but need empirical backing.
Which brings us to AI, the future. Can't AI actually explain dreaming?
Well, current AI can analyze huge data sets of dream reports. There are AI dream interpreters now, like DreamyBot or Individuate.me, that use psychological theories to offer interpretations.
But they have limits, right? They don't actually experience dreams.
That's the core limitation. No subjective qualia, know what it's like. Interpretations can be generic, miss personal nuance. AI is a tool, not a replacement for human insight. And there's risk of misinterpretation or user bias influencing the results.
And this creates a feedback loop. AI, using psych theories, influences how we see dreams.
Potentially, yeah. It could shape our understanding, for better or worse. Risk of oversimplification.
But AI isn't just interpreting, it's simulating dreamlike processes. Memory consolidation, scenario exploration.
Right. AI researchers are trying to mimic these functions, replaying data, prioritizing information, generating novel scenarios using GANs or VAEs, even simulating symbolic learning.
To make AI itself better, more adaptable, creative.
That's one goal, but it also serves as a way to test theories about human dreaming. If an AI with a dreaming module performs better at certain tasks, it lends some support to the idea that dreaming serves that function in us.
Could AI help figure out dream triggers? Or the sense of dreams?
It could analyze massive data sets to find correlations linked to triggers in humans or animals. And testing different dreaming algorithms in AI might shed light on functional theories.
But understanding the subjective meaning for a human, AI will struggle there.
Likely, yes. That deep connection to personal history, consciousness, emotion, that's probably beyond current AI's grasp.
Okay, so let's talk practicalities. Mitigating bad dreams, engaging healthily. There are therapies.
Yes, established clinical approaches like imagery rehearsal therapy, IRT, where you recall, rewrite, and rehearse a nightmare. Also, exposure, relaxation, and re-scripting therapy, and lucid dreaming therapy. Medications like prazosin are sometimes used for PTSD nightmares, too.
And for everyday life, things we can do.
Dream journaling helps with recall and pattern spotting. Reality testing when you wake up from a confusing dream. Stress management, good sleep hygiene are foundational. Approaching interpretation with curiosity, remembering you're the authority, and seeking help if dreams are consistently distressing.
And those ethical frameworks are key again, autonomy, do no harm, privacy, honesty.
Absolutely crucial, especially as technology advances. Cultural sensitivity is vital too. And finding a balance between exploring dream content, even difficult stuff, and preventing harm.
What about future research directions?
Lots. Longitudinal studies tracking dreams over time, better integration of neurobiology and subjective reports using advanced imaging, AI for large-scale analysis and modeling, more cross-cultural work, exploring therapeutic uses beyond nightmares, and deeper dives into the genetics.
So wrapping this all up, what a journey. Dreaming is this incredibly complex thing. Neurobiology, psychology, culture, and now AI, all converging on it.
It truly is multifaceted. And while science keeps revealing more, that personal, subjective experience and the meaning we find in our own dreams, that remains central.
Definitely. So a final thought for everyone listening. Thinking about a future where AI might interpret, maybe even influence our dreams, what ethical lines do we need to draw? How could that change our view of consciousness itself?
Or perhaps more personally, reflect on your own recent dreams. What might they be telling you about your waking life? How can you engage with them more thoughtfully?
Dreaming. This nightly trip into our inner landscapes. Still full of mystery, still offering insights into being human.
Keep exploring.
This is DigitView.